All right, so we'll get started. Hope you're able to hear my voice and see the screen. Guys, can you hear my voice and see the screen? Just give me a thumbs up if you're able to do so. Okay, all right. So you're able to see the screen. So we'll start with our database. So I use the database as KiranaDB. And yesterday we had seen the normal forms and how do we kind of construct the databases, and also we have to create some keys for it, right? That is what we have seen. We have to create some keys, etc. In order to create a table. So we'll try to begin at that point. So first thing is, let us try to create the table, right? So one thing that I would like to do now is, if the table is not there, then probably we want to drop it first, right? Or if it is there, we want to drop it first and then start creating a table afresh. So I'll drop the table if it exists. So drop table if exists, and the table name is items. Okay, let us try to do this. So I drop this, and we do not have the table here. So let's check it. So it says only items underscore null that we created yesterday. There is no items table in this, right? The next thing is, what we'll try to do is we'll create a table with particular columns. So we will try to have these columns in our table. First one would be item ID. Okay, so we'll create item ID as our column in it. Then we'll have SKU code in our table. Then we'll have item code in our table. Okay, then we'll have item name in our table. Okay, then we'll have item description in our table. After that, we'll have quantity. And then we'll have price. These are the columns that we are going to create in our table. So again, how do we do this? So we'll say create table. Okay, and then if exists or if not exists, right? If not exists, then only it has to create, and the table name is items. And the keyword is exists, and we want to create this particular table. Okay, so create table if not exists item, and check is not required. So this is our table name. So we'll try to create a table here. Table with the columns that we discussed, right? So what are the columns that we are going to create? First one is item ID. Okay, and this would be of type int. Fine. So I'll try to give space, and then unsigned type. It is unsigned in the sense that it will only take positive values. That is what unsigned means. And then we want to make sure this value is not null. The other thing that we want to make sure that the item ID that is available should be not null, and we want to make it auto increment. Right? Or try to write this auto increment. Separate a comma followed by the next column name. So after item ID, we have SKU code. Okay, and this is varchar 10. Okay, and then again, this is not null. We want to make sure SKU code is also not null, which is uniquely identifying the code of the name. This is like for each row, this is unique. Okay, we have unique value, and then we have SKU code also. This is also a unique value in the table. This would be a unique value in the table. Fine. So we have these values. After SKU code, the next column would be item code, right? Item code, and we'll have this of length 5. And I make this of character. This would be of character type, and I do not specify anything, item code. And the next one that we'll have is item name. Okay, item name. Item name will have about a length of, let's say this will be having about 40 characters in length, item name. And the default value for this would be, right? What does default value is? If we are not specifying anything while, let's say we are trying to put records into this table in items, then if we are not entering any value, then n/a would be captured. That is what would be the value for item name. Okay, we have item code, and then we have item name. And after item name, we have item description. Okay, item description. And this is of length 50. This is of variable character. This would be of length 50. And again, default value for this would be n/a. Okay, this is what we will try to give the value for this. If nothing is mentioned while we are inserting the records into this table items, then the default value will be n/, right? So that is what we'll provide. And then we have quantity. How much of the quantity is present, right? How much of the quantity is present in the table, and this would be of type int. And the default value for this would be 0. Because it's of type int, the default value will be 0. So let me try to just format this so that you know what we are trying to do with each of the column names. And after the quantity, we have price, and price would be of type, we'll try to make it of type decimal so that we have precision in it. And then this would be of length 7 with 2 decimal values. Fine. And default value for this would be 0.0. That is what we would like to specify for this. This would be 0.0. And once we have created the table, the next thing that we want to do is that we want to create a primary key. So I specify primary key as the column. So which column do we want to make the primary key? I have item ID. So I'll try to make the column item ID as the primary key for this table, right? So this is what we have done, and it gets auto incremented each time. Okay, so item ID int unsigned not null, and we are auto incrementing it. So if there are certain particular values, the next value would be auto incremented if item ID is not available or it is not inserted whenever we want to load that data into items table. Then we have SKU code, etc. Then this is again varchar of 10, not null. SKU code is a unique identifier for a particular item. And it also captures some kind of manufacturing code. That is what would be SKU code. And then we have item code. For a particular item within the departmental store or in the Kirana store, we want to identify the item code. Then we have item name, the name of that particular item. Then we have item description, the complete description of that item, quantity, and then price, and then item ID. Right? So this is what we have. We'll try to execute this particular table now. And this got executed. And how do we see the table? We use describe and then items, right? This is what would be shown here. And this is what we see here with respect to the values that we have provided, right? Describe items gives us all the default values and which key is the primary key. And we see that item ID is the primary key. And it is auto incrementable. Default values are given in this particular column, right? So we have all the values and we have described what it means with respect to the items table. And by the way, with respect to the database, we'll create initially these three tables. First one would be items table. Okay, and then we'll have departments in the Kirana store or in the departmental store, and probably we'll capture customers, right? And then slowly we'll add different tables to our database and see how they have a relationship with one another. So right now we have items, and these are the columns that are there in the items table, right? So we have created our items table. The next thing, once we have the items table, is to insert the values into items table, right? So let's try to insert uh, the data into the items table. So this would need some kind of data in it. So let's try to insert certain values into this table. So let me try to take what we had previously. I'll try to take whatever we had previously. So I'll get that and then try to put this in this particular table. So I am taking these set of records, okay? So for each thing, I have insert into items. I have the value. Then inside this value, I have multiple statements of this, right? Insert into items value. Items is the table name. So we are inserting data into this. Inserting data into items table, right? I'll upload this particular piece onto the GitHub or onto the drive so that you can have access to this particular insert statements as well. Okay, so we have insert into items and the value for each of this. So we have item ID, the first case. Then we have the SKU code, which is PT234. And then we have the item code. Then we have the item name, which is noodles in this case. And then we have the item description. We have Divyanjali noodles hyphen small pack, and the number of units that are available right now. There are 40 units of these are available, and price of each unit is about 10 rupees. Okay, that is what we have here. And for the second column or the second row, I'm sorry, the second row is insert into items, table name. That is what we provide. So this is how it will look like. The syntax for insert statement is like this. So we have insert into table name, right? And then there are multiple variants of it. We'll look at each of them. And then you'll have column 1, column 2. When I say column 1, column 2, these are the values for each of those columns, respective values, right? So until column n. Okay, so this is how it would be represented, and that is what we have done below. So insert into the table name is items, value. What are the values that we would like to place into them? So we have 101. Then this is basically the next, sorry, let us take 102. So this is item ID 102. And then the item SKU code for 102 is PT235, right? That is what would be inserted. And then we have the item code as 2345. And then the item name is noodles. And then the description is Divyanjali noodles double pack. Okay, that is the description. And then we have 30 of them, and each costs 20 rupees, right? That is what we have. So similarly, we have certain records like this. We'll try to insert them. So let me try to execute all of them together. So insert into items, and then we have value. So that is what we have. So let me try to execute these particular statements. I hit Control Enter, and we see that the values have been inserted, and that is what is the last value that it shows. So the first thing that we'll try to do is check if these values have been inserted. If the values are inserted, how do we check them? We can use the count, or we can use select star from items, right? So this is how I'll check if the data is available. Oh, looks like, let me see this. Okay. Select count star. think I have executed only one at a time. And there is only one record. So let me try to insert the other values as well. Looks like there is a comma, or there is not a comma, semicolon. Yeah, there is a semicolon. Let me try to run these again. Oh, I think because of the semicolon, I think I have to run each of them individually. This should actually run, but somehow this is not getting. Let me try to run this again. Yeah, now it runs. And let me try to re-execute this statement, select count star from items, and now it gives 25. Right, so there are 25 records in the table, and let us see what those 25 records are. And this is what we are able to see them, right? So there are 25 records. Okay, so we have about 25 records in our table. So let's say we want to only view the first two records, right? We want to view only the first two records with all the column names. Okay, select first two records with all the columns. Right, so select star from items, limit 2. Right, this is what I provide. So select star from items limit 2 will give us the first two records. Right, and if I say limit 4, then it will give us the first 4 records. Right, that is what it gives us. So limit is used to give us the number of records that we want, or the first set of records that we want to display. Right, and I do something like this. Let's say 1, 4. Then what it means is the first record is skipped. If I provide limit 1, 4 like this, first record is skipped, and after that, the next 4 records are shown. Right, that is what it means here. So I provide something like this, right? 2, 4. Then the first 2 records are skipped, and the next 4 records are shown. So that is how we can use this. First thing is, if I use limit 2, this will give us the first 2 records. But let's say I want to skip the first select records. So like select the next, select the 4 rows after the first 2 records, after the first 2 records. This is what we want to do. Right? So how do we do this? Select star. Star indicates, or a wildcard indicates that we are selecting all the columns from items, limit 1, 2. Right? This will give us, sorry, this is after the first 2 records, right? So I'll try to put what is there in the above statement. So limit 2, 4. So the next 4 records after the first 2 records. The first 2 records would not be displayed, and the next 4 records would be displayed, right? So 2, 4 is what would be given in this as the output, right? So that is what we see here in the output. Select star from items, limit 2, 4 is nothing but ignore the first 2 records and then start displaying the next 4 records. All right, so that is what will be the output for limit 2, 4. Okay, so that is how we'll be using the limit statement. And after this, once we do the limit statement, let us try to create one more table. This time we said we want to create the departments table, right? In departments table, we will have these set of records, or these set of columns for which the records would be present. So we will create department ID for the departments table, and it would be our primary key, and it would be again of integer type. Okay, that is what we'll try to consider. After the department ID, it will have name to it. Okay, the departments will have name, and this would be of varchar. Okay, let's try to create this. Okay, and then we'll add the primary key for this particular department ID in the departments table. So before we do this, for the departments table, right, we will try to drop if it is existing, right? So drop table. This is the best way to do it always. If it exists, first drop it. Now, why is this important, right? We discussed this yesterday. Again, let me try to demonstrate this. Let's say if I drop a table which is not existing, right? So let's say I do this. Now, this will throw an error, right? In a script, or if you're trying to run the entire script, this would throw an error, and then it would not get executed further as well. We do not want errors most of the time. And the best way to do it always is drop table if it exists and then drop it, right? So only if it is existing, we want to drop it. So when I execute this, we know department is not there, right? So there is nothing to be really, drop it. So the database just provides a warning instead of an error, right? That is what happens. So this is a better way of executing the drop statement or the drop command. Similarly for create also, only create the table if doesn't exist, right? Anyways, we are dropping it previously. So this statement would look logical, right? That is why we are trying to do this. So, right, departments, and then we have this. So create table if not exist departments. And in this departments table, we have two columns, right? Department ID, int not null, and we auto increment this, and then we have the name column, and then this is basically of not, right? So we want the name column to be right of, again, it should not be null, so that is why we try to do this. Choose, what does it say? It says incorrect table definition, but this is something. Oh, right. So now, and then before we do this, let me add the primary key to it, or let me try to put it in this fashion. Primary key and the underscore ID, right? So that is what I provide here. Okay, so this is of type integer. And let me try to just format this. So this is again not null, right? Auto increment is correct. Auto increment is correct. And then we have the name as the department name. Right, this is of varchar 25, and then I run this as a primary key, right? And this gets affected, and let's see if this is there. So I'll try to refresh the database from here, and then see if the table is there. So departments is present inside this. Okay, so departments is also present in our Kirana DB. Right, so this is how we have the departments table as well. Now let us try to insert few records into the departments table. Okay, so in order to insert the data, we are going to have two columns, and then we'll try to create values for these. So there will be 4 departments in this. We'll have warehouse store as one of the departments. Okay. Then we'll have sales as the another department, and then we have security as another department, and then we have transport as the other department. Okay, so these are the various departments that we will have. So we will try to do this in this fashion. So insert into departments, right? And Then we'll provide the column names, right? Insert into departments, and the departments will have the column names like department underscore ID, and then we have name, and then we'll have values. Okay, so this is how we'll try to insert data into this. So let me try to bring this here. Values, and then we'll have the values that have to be inserted. Okay, this is what we'll have. And then we'll have sales. Then this is the transport department. So these are the departments that we will have in our departmental house. Okay, so warehouse stores is the place where we want to kind of store the goods. So there is some people working there. Then there are sales people who kind of are at the counters or looking after what kind of needs are there for the customers. And then we have security department taking care of the entire departmental store. And there is a transport department that tries to bring the goods or maybe, provide them to deliver at the places of the customer, right? So this is what we have. And we will try to insert these records into the departments table. Right, so we have these values, and let us check if these values are there in the table. They have been inserted into the table successfully. So let us check this if they are there in the table or not. So let me try to run this query. And we see that the data is populated. The output is displayed in the result grid, right? That is what we see here. The data is available, and we will be able to run the query properly. Right, and there are 4 records in them. Fine, so this is how we have our departments table. So the next table that we will try to create is basically the customers table. So again, the customers table will have few records. We'll have lesser number of records for our customers. And then slowly, as we do more exercises, we'll try to see how the data could be increased in them as well. So first thing is we'll look at customer. How do we do that? The same thing. We'll drop the table if it exists. Right, and the customers table. Okay, let me try to execute this, and then we create the table if it not exists. Not exists, and the table name. Right, the same approach we are following. We are dropping the table if it exists. All right, so that if it is not there, even then dropping the table will not really throw any error, or it will not cause any errors for us. Okay. Similarly for creating the table. Right. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll create an ID column for it. Right. So ID integer, this is of type integer. And then this should be not null. And then we will try to make auto increment for this. Auto increment. Okay. That is what we have. And then first name of the customer. So we'll call F name. And this would be of varchar of 35. So varchar variable character length, and this is not null, right? And probably we'll want to give some default value if the customer did not provide, let's say, the details. We'll just say not applicable, and then last name. Varchar of, let's say, if the value or the length is again 35 characters. This is again not null, and default value is not applicable. And then we have email. Email will make sure this is of longer length. So this is again of varchar, and then email probably will make sure they enter the email. phone number, right? Phone number is something that we will try to see, even though it is not available, we can still take care of it. And this would be of 14 length. So I do not provide any not null option to it. I just give that as it is. So let me try to format this a little bit. So we have all the details captured. So varchar, and then we have not null. Then we have last name. So all of them are put under one single, and we identify these values correctly because phone number is the longest length so far. And then we have something called as preferred contact. So if the customer wants to be contacted, what is the best mode in which we can contact them? So varchar of 5. Okay. And this is again not null. Right. And we need a primary key for our customer. So primary key for the customer is ID. Right. So this is what we have for ID. And we have to, anyways, I think we are good. Let me try to run this. Probably we'll just make this a little bit of adjustments. All right, so we have all the details for the customer's table ready. So let's run this, okay? So this ran, and let's try to insert the data into customer's table. So how do we insert it? So again, I have certain records ready. Let me try to bring that up. So insert into customers, and these are the values, right? So we have the customer ID, first name, last name, and then we have the email, and then the phone number and the preferred contact, right? So these are about 6 to 7 6 customers. So let me try to run them and see how these tables go. So let me try to run them quickly. Okay, so we inserted the records into the customers table, and these are the values that are available. Fine. So we have the values in each of these tables. Can you scroll up a few lines? Okay. Just give me a minute. Probably I'll share this on the drive. Just give me a minute. Okay. Start executing them. All right. So these are the places where we have the files. And then let me try to look at the set of steps that we would like to do now. So the next thing that we'll look at is running the statement as an alias name. Okay. So we have already seen using the wild characters, right? So select star from items will give us all the columns, and we have already seen select count star from items, right? These are the tables that we have, and this is what gives us the data back. Fine. So this is what will give us. So the first thing that we will try to do is we want to give an alias name, right? We want to create an alias name for our table. So I say something like this: select items, and then as item description. Okay, from items. Oh, sorry, it cannot be items, right? I want something else. So this should be item name or item description, right? So item description. Right, so we have item description with the alias name or the name of the column that we want to show in our display. So we get all the item descriptions that are available for each of the record or each of the rows, and they are displayed here, right? So for the 25 records that we have, all of them are displayed with the item description. Okay, so that is what we have here, item description. The next thing that we'll look at is, let's say instead of one alias name for one column, we can add multiple names. So I'll take this same thing and add one more column to it. So select this one, and then probably here we'll have item name alias as item name. Right. So we are trying to create an alias name or a name of the column to be displayed, right? So we have item name and item description, right? And I have used the symbol tilde, right? This is that is available on the tilde character or the apostrophe. That is what I have used here, right? That is the symbol that I have used to present the column name. And it is not a quote, but it is essentially a apostrophe that I have used, right? And then presented the column name that we want to have or the alias name that we want to have. All right, so we have these set of columns to be displayed. The next thing that we'll try to look at is that once we do this, how do we kind of see what kind of columns are present, or how did we create our table? So we have seen this earlier. It is just that create table, show create table, and then items is our table name. So this is how it will give us the output. So we have the table as the items and create table command of what it has used. So I'll try to comment this out quickly and see how it was created. So we'll know what is the internal workings of it. So this is our items was copied, and then we have the create table, right? So these are the set of steps it has used, the same thing that we have used. And as we see here, it uses a apostrophe symbol in order to name a particular column, right? And each of them have default values, primary key, etc. And there would be something like the engine that it is using. The engine that it uses is basically an InnoDB. MySQL or MySQL uses an InnoDB in order to execute our SQL queries. So that is an engine that is available in MySQL server, right? So that is how we get the create table command. Show create table and the table name. So in this case, it is items. So show create table items. The next thing that we'll have is the where clause. Now, if you want to use a where clause, right? Where clause is generally used for specifying conditions. We want to specify conditions to display the data in a specific type or in a specific manner, right? So let's say we want all the columns from the items table, and we want to know only the price or the column names whose price is greater than 10, right? The price value should be greater than 10. So that is what we do here. So it displays all the columns whose price is greater than 10. So select star from items where price is greater than 10. So it uses all the records whose price is greater than 10. Fine. So that is what we get as the output. All right. So any questions on this with respect to the where clause? So we use select, okay, select, and then column names, which columns needs to be displayed from the table name, and then the where clause, okay, and whatever the condition that we want to specify. And there are various kind of operators that can be specified within the where clause. One is the greater than symbol or the greater than operator. Then we have the less than operator. Then we have the equals operator. Then we have the and operator or operator and the in operator. And there are various other operators that could be used, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So these are the kind of operators that we can use with respect to the where clause, right? So where price is greater than 10. So similarly, we want to find out, let's say, the columns uh, whose price is less than 100. We want to display the item description as well as the item name, right? So we want to do that. So let me try to run this. So select item name as name, right? As name, and then item description as item description or description. From items where price is less than 100. All the items for which the price is less than 100, and we want to get the item name for them and the item description of those. So these are the items that are less than 100. So noodles from Divyanjali noodles small pack, all of these are less than 100. That is what we see here. Let's say we want to get all of the items that are greater than 100, right? So all the items whose price is greater than 100. So I just change this and maintain the same thing. So there are only 3 items, right? So chocolates, chocolate nuts, and chocolates nuts. Okay, so these are the 3 items that we have that are present here. Okay, so and similarly something that we want less than or equal to. Let's say we use the same thing. All that I do is I change this condition greater than or equal to 100, not strictly greater, including 100 also. Then we have about 4 columns. There are 4 columns, 4 rows. There are 4 rows with the name and the description column whose price is greater than or equal to 100. So the output is 4 rows. Let's say we want to get something that is less than or equal to 100. All the rows for which the price is right less than or equal to 100, right? Now in this case we get all of these columns, right? Or if you want to know the count, then we'll just try to use the same thing and then we'll use count star, right? Select count star for this particular condition. And it use 22 records are there whose price is less than or equal to 100. Okay, similarly, how many of them are greater than or equal to 100? Right, so there are about 4 records that are greater than or equal to 100. So one record is almost 100, the rest are 22 of them are less than 100, 3 of them are above 100. So this is how we'll be able to use the where clause with respect to a quantity or with respect to a value that could be used in terms of greater, less than, greater than, equal to, less than or equal to operators. That is where we'll be able to use them. Fine. So that is what we'll be able to use greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. Now, let's say we want to use it for comparison, right? I want to get all the columns with the item name, right? I use the same thing. We select the same columns and I just use the item name. Instead of price, I say item name. I remove this. I specify item name is equals to chocolates. Okay. All that I do is chocolates. I want all the items with the chocolates item name. Right. So we have chocolates and then the item description is Divyanjali organic healthy chocolate. Similarly, chocolates with is a large packet. So these are the 2 columns which have the item name as chocolates. Okay. So that is how we can use the equality operator with respect to a string name, right? Now let's say we want to specify all those items whose names are not chocolate, okay, or not chocolate. I want to get all those records with are not chocolate. So all that I'll do is I'll just replace this and replace with this not, okay, or not chocolates. And it will give us the all the other records. Fine. So we get chocolate nuts, biscuits, toothpaste, whatever is there. Right. So that is how we'll be able to use which is not chocolate. I can use not chocolates in this fashion. All right. So any questions still here, folks? All right. So if there are no questions, then probably we'll stop here for today. Tomorrow we'll look at the other operators and the other set of statements that we have, and then we'll complete the CRUD commands. CRUD includes create, retrieve, update, and delete. We have started with retrieval and create. Tomorrow we'll complete it with update and delete, and then move ahead with the other set of concepts that are there in with respect to SQL. All right. If there are no questions, then see you tomorrow. Good night and goodbye.